Oh my god, she's a weirdo.
Previously on Fat Cow Chronicles, we'll either see more of this but multiplied because Salah's not playing ball, or tomorrow we could have hijabi foodie. Hello, 'tis I, Fat Cow. There's a lot to get done, so let's just get on with it, shall we?
Hello. Hi guys. Sana. Hi.
She's extremely jolly in this video. You know, the kind of jolly that kind of implies she's pretending that everything's okay. At least that's the impression I get. You know, the no, I'm fine kind of jolly.
Modesty queen. Hi guys.
She's also very nervous. There's a lot of nervous energy and her eyes are a bit glassy. I think because she's been crying. I think she's probably been crying every day though, so...
No, Syria is not in our future. What begins? Living my life how I want, not how others want?
Defiance again. She knows she's going to have her arse handed to her on a plate by Chat. So she's crossed her arms, she's leant back, her lips are tense, she's ready for a fight.
Fed up with my hair? Honestly, if I'm being honest, there's a combination of things going through my mind. First of all, I'm so confused. Like I've always been. You guys don't know how hard it is unless you're in my situation.
Right. Again, because, you know, I bring this up a lot because it's relevant. And, yeah. I lived in the Middle East for over a decade. I was married to a Muslim man. I had children with this Muslim man. I also was a practicing Muslim. I no longer am. So, after over 10 years living in one particular culture, following one particular faith, I returned to a Western culture, no longer practicing that faith. So everything that I comment on from now on in can be viewed under the umbrella that I know exactly what she's going through on a surface level, with the exception being I was legitimately married, I was legitimately practicing Islam, and I lived in the Middle East for over a decade.
Right? Like being between cultures, like when you're from a culture and I've spent the last 3 years adapting to a different culture, and then it's just like, I thought like you guys, I thought it would be so easy to just rip everything off and just go back to like how I was 3 years ago, but it's not like that, and it has nothing to do with Salah.
It has everything to do with Salah, because when you make the decision to no longer follow a particular faith, while you do keep parts of the faith in your life, I don't mean the religious practices side, but there are parts of faiths that you can take on into normal, non-religious life with yourself, like the treatment of people, the treatment of the poor, the treatment of animals, etc., etc. Also, the abuse of drugs, possibly, if that had been an issue prior, alcohol, the eating of certain foods, maybe. It's up to you. It's entirely up to the individual. But the transition from being one culture to another culture and then returning to the previous culture isn't that difficult. For me personally, the biggest problem I had when I returned to the UK after living in the Middle East for such a long time was the nudity in media, because I hadn't seen nudity in media. I opened a newspaper in a cafe, and on page 3, you know what newspaper I was talking about, there was a pair of naked boobs. And I was initially shocked, but in a small part more so because I had very small children with me, and obviously they hadn't been exposed to that kind of media either. But apart from that, I really did not have an issue. Now, we know Foodie will do anything to get her man back. And yesterday she tried the tactics she would have tried and maybe have worked somewhat successfully with Nader. But it didn't work with Salah. So she's gone to the other extreme. The other extreme to get Salah's attention. And this is what it is. Basically, it's nothing else.
I thought it would, but it doesn't. Like, regardless if I ever talk to Salah again or not, like, this just feels better for me right now, and maybe I just need more time. Right, it's up for me to decide, and right now, this just feels better. Is it partly because, it's just, I guess I just, believe in Allah, and, has nothing to do with a man, obviously. Like, I don't want to be near a man right now. I don't care about men. I just care about myself.
Her entire body language suggests the explanation she's giving currently is complete and utter bullshit. I would also argue that if you'd legitimately practice a faith for a particular length of time, and you decided to turn your back on that faith without turning your back on that faith, as Foodie's suggesting, that she was still praying to Allah, she just wasn't veiled, and that she started eating bacon and started getting stoned and started showing her body, but still believed in Allah. If she legitimately believed in Allah, she wouldn't have done those things. The caveat to this is somebody who is struggling between their faith and their addictions, and I will give her that if that's the legitimate, honest truth. But it's not, because everything she's saying right there is completely contradictory to her body language. Absolutely 100%.
Self and growing as a person, and did you throw the bacon? I'm gonna probably give it to my mom.
That's a big fat lie. If, like myself, you believe in body language and micro expressions, she's not going to part with her food. She threw away a faith for so easily. She's just going to be secretive about it.
Rainbow Road, you need help. What am I going to go to a therapist and say? I'm just confused about religion, about my self-image, which is totally normal.
There's a lot you can say to a therapist, Foodie. A lot. And yeah, maybe just start with, I have a problem with my own identity. I don't know who I am when I'm not with a man. I mean, that's a pretty big issue.
Nobody should be disappointed in something that I want to do for myself spiritually. It's just weird.
That's all well and good. You're saying the right things, but it's not something you're doing for yourself spiritually. It's something you are doing to manipulate a man to take you back. We're allowed to have opinions about that.
Yeah, it's my life. I'm still the same. I'm not the same person I was 3 years ago because acting, like, just getting high and
You are the same person that you've always been. The only difference between you here in Canada, you in Thailand, and you in the Middle East is the access to drugs. That's the only difference. The only reason you didn't get continuously high in the Middle East is because you didn't know how to get hold of the necessary drugs. Because trust me, it's all over the Middle East. It's very easy to get. I've smoked weed in the Middle East. I've smoked hashish in the Middle East. Granted, not much, but it was easy to get because my husband always had it with him because he knew somebody who sold it, and my husband smoked it daily.
acting just like I feel like I have no purpose doing stuff like that. You know, I want to grow. I don't want to regress. I'm sorry, but I don't.
There is no growth for you, foodie. You are beyond the capabilities of growth unless you have intensive therapy. What you're doing right now is participating in your mental downfall. Your desperation is pushing you to a point you would do anything to have Salah in your life, and that is pitiful.
Hey, Tracy. People don't think it's for you, cutie. Well, people aren't me, and they don't have a right to tell me how to live my life, Kalu. Right? People don't know me 100% like they think they do. Obviously.
I would argue you don't know yourself 100% either. The statement you've just made, you are completely convicted by, convinced of, and that's all well and good. Yes, but we know enough. You've shown so much of yourself on the internet that we legitimately know enough, down to the size of underwear you wear. We know what your private parts look like. We know how you behave when you're drunk. We know how you behave when you're hungry. We know how you behave when you're angry. We know so much about you, physically and psychologically, that you cannot use that argument anymore.
Could have waited till you went back for that. Could have waited till I went back to where? I'm not going anywhere. Canada's my home now. I like my place.
She likes her place, but Canada is not her home now. Again, if you read her body language correctly.
I'm not leaving, but I still, obviously, I've lived in the Middle East for 3 years. The whole time, it wasn't miserable, but I'm just very confused about myself. And I still do have a lot of that culture in my heart, and it's going to take a while to get back. Like, I feel like I have reverse culture shock right now. I'm not even...
Culture shock is culture shock. You can't reverse it. You had culture shock when you went to the Middle East, and now, if you're to be believed, you have culture shock in Canada. You were in the Middle East for 3 years. I was there for over 10. And what you're talking about isn't as big a thing as you are implying, especially as you returned to Canada so frequently every year you were in the Middle East. If you look at Sansa Cook's video about the amount of time you lived in the Middle East, a good third of that time was not spent there.
I'm kidding. People think I'm only in Canada for 3 months. It's not true. Baldness and chins. Well, if that was the case, when in the history of YouTube have I ever been ashamed of that? But I will admit, and even the aunties in Syria said, like, I was like, my hair, because they were like, take off the hijab, like, when you're just as women. And I'm like, my hair's ugly. And they're like, well, if you continue to wear the hijab, you won't have to worry about any of that. Even they joke about that, so who cares?
That statement, that conversation never happened. And there was no one there that spoke English well enough to have that conversation with. And Salah wasn't there to translate, because if Salah was there, the aunties wouldn't have been asking her to take a hijab off because of their hair. Aunties doesn't necessarily imply blood relations, by the way. And if you're a hijabi, you do not show your hair to any male who isn't a blood relation or an in-law, but only your father-in-law, not like brother-in-law or anything like that.
So that is a perk of it, not having to worry about your hair, 100%. But that's not the only reason.
No, it's not the only reason. The other reason's Salah.
Right, there you go. Okay, here we go. Lynn. Foodie, I support you as you are. Hey, Elvira. If everyone else that doesn't approve, they're the ones with the problems. They can't control what you wear. Exactly, you can't control what I wear or how I feel. You know? Will you be doing any other... Even if I didn't want to be Muslim and wear a hijab, I'm allowed to. There's no law. There's no sin. There's a lot of Christians that wear hijab. There's a lot of people who don't even practice who wear hijab. It's not about that. And personally, yes, I will be. I have always still been practicing. Even if I had bacon, even if I smoked weed, I still pray. I still was praying this whole trip back here. I don't think I would have gotten through it without God, you know? But it doesn't mean I'm going to be boring. It's just that, you know, if you expect me to just be, you know, high and messy all the time, then that might be boring for you, yeah.
You're still going to be messy. Absolutely, categorically. You're also going to be significantly more dull than you were in the last week. And that's saying something. And as for the getting high, you are going to get high, and you are going to get high on lives. You're just going to be hiding behind your avatar. Getting high behind a blank screen isn't better than getting high on a FaceTime. In fact, you could argue that religiously getting high but lying about it is actually worse than getting high and being honest about it.
Well, you have a right to be confused, Harley, but I've been explaining it. I think the issue is that nobody believes it, which I don't know why, but...
Because you're a lying liar who lies. You're pathological. You're a pathological liar. And you can get as pissed off about it as you want, about people not believing you, because the only reason you think people don't believe you is because you think you're smarter than everybody else, and that just makes you arrogant.
I explained when I left, I signed divorce papers, and Salah has to bring them to the court, which is in Damascus, which is pretty far, and he just
Again, Foodie's marriage, if she did it civilly, which means she married Salah as a Christian, is not legally recognised in Syria, and therefore cannot be annulled or ended in Syria.
haven't gotten around to it yet. I ate through prayer. Maybe I prayed after I got off live. You don't know. You're not the prayer police. You don't have a right to tell someone when to pray, how to worship Allah, how to worship God. Because Allah is just another word for God, if that's what's confusing you guys. I'm sure there's a lot of you in here who believe... I look like I look like an auntie right now. I'm not being forced to wear this. From who? Salah.
If Foodie legitimately, with her heart, believed in God, she would be scared to do the things that she does that are against the religion she follows. I know I was. I stopped doing a lot of things when I believed and followed Islam. And I was legitimately worried of displeasing God. I legitimately believed. Maybe one day I'll explain the circumstances of me losing my belief and what happened and what followed. But one day. But no, she has no fear of God and God judging her. It's not there. And that's the reason why I don't believe she believes. It's as simple as that. She doesn't act like somebody who believes.
Oh no. I've seen many people who are non-Muslim wearing hijab on social media.
It's not called a hijab for them, though. A hijab is Islamic specific. Nuns cover their hair, but it's not called a hijab. People who choose to wear headscarves that cover everything for another reason that isn't Islamic, it's not called a hijab. You can say a lot of people cover their hair or a lot of people wear scarves, but not hijabs. Hijabs is Islamic specific.
I'm a scammer and a grifter, right? What am I scamming by wearing a hijab? Can I?
Technically, you're scamming Salah. You're trying to convince him you're the person he wanted you to be so that he will return to you. So yeah, actually, you are scamming somebody.
Can you tell me that? No, because you probably have no brain. Lost keys. I'm staying in Canada 100,000,000%. Yeah, it's not.
The look she said after that, where she looked down very quickly, means that while she kind of believes that to a certain extent, it's definitely not 100,000,000%. She's hoping to stay in Canada. She's really hoping to stay in Canada, but she is prepared to move to the Middle East if she has to be with Salah.
About looks, key. It's okay. I was excited and then I took it off and I feel weird now. Yes, I am Muslim. I've sinned. And I've been confused, but
the eye movements during that statement suggests it's a lie. You want Salah to pay attention to you. You said yourself, we don't talk much. I think you try and contact him many times a day, and he might reply now and again. Maybe he can go a whole day without contacting you. And we all know from the video that you showed when Nada, after 3 weeks, hadn't replied to you for an entire night, being ignored sends you batshit crazy. And it's only because you can't afford to get on a plane and go back to Syria to find out what he's doing that you're still there in Canada. You can't afford to go back and reunite with your soulmate who doesn't think of you the same way because you can't afford to. So it's the distance that's changed the behaviour, nothing else.